Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. You ready for another episode of My Bigfoot Sighting? Alright then, let's do this.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, love's in the plow, and the five-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah.
If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let me know.
My Bigfoot sighting happened in September of this year. My name is Gwendoline Guthrie. I've been a researcher of paranormal for 20 plus years, and I got into Bigfoot research about 10 years ago. So my interest all began when I was very young. I was always interested in mysteries and the unknown and all the questions that were floating around out there. And I remember when I was younger, I would sit on the floor in front of the TV, and I had my little notebook, and I was watching Loch Ness Monster shows, Monster Quest, all those older shows. And I was just totally enthralled by them. And I did that for a long time before I found out that, Bigfoot is in the U.S. too. And I could go out looking for that creature as well. So I added that to my existing research of the paranormal. And I just fell in love with just being out in the woods and looking for this unknown hairy creature that could potentially be around us without us even knowing it. And I did it for probably a good 5 or 6 years before I had my first encounter with a Bigfoot. So all that time I was researching, I always had the little question nagging at me in the back of the head, like, why are you out here doing this? This is silly. But I continued to do it because it was fun. It piqued my interest. It wasn't a chore. It was something I enjoyed. So it was quite a while before I had my first Bigfoot experience. And I had my first Bigfoot experience in Kentucky up on a mountaintop. And we actually went out there, me, another researcher, and about 4 to 5, I believe there was 5 total people that we invited along to do what we called a Bigfoot walk. And what we were doing is we went to a pre-existing Bigfoot location. This location was thought to have been kind of a dead spot. They were very active years and years ago. Everything had quieted down. So we went to this area with the understanding that we were just going to look for older signs of Bigfoot, older tree breaks, older structures, look for bodies of water, helping new people get into the field by learning what to look for and how to look for it. So we organized this weeks ahead of time. We all showed up in Kentucky. It was in Berea, Kentucky. And we all showed up, and we're going to go hike up this ridge. It's real steep, a little climb. And it's pretty frequented during the day, but at nighttime, everything gets closed down. So there's nobody around at night. So we knew we had to get up and down before it got too dark. So we took this group of people up, and as we're going up, we're showing them how to make Bigfoot calls, the purpose of doing Bigfoot calls, the dangers of doing Bigfoot calls, things to look for. And when we got up about halfway up the mountain, it was a mountain trail, so it wasn't too crazy, but there was different levels. There was like an easy level, the middle level, and then there was the harder level. So it had different options available, because it's a pretty rural, pretty steep area. And we got about halfway up, and they must have all been college kids except for one. And they decided that they had had enough. They were ready to go to their party. I guess they had a party planned later, and they were concerned about how long it would take to get back down and getting to the party in time. So they decided to break off and head back down and go to do what they were going to do. We had one of our invites who was also a friend. There was a joint friend of both the other researcher, Mike, and mine. And I actually met him through Mike. So he decided he wanted to stay. He was a Bigfoot enthusiast. He wasn't really a researcher, but he was excited to be out there and being involved and enjoying nature with us. So he decided, let's keep going all the way up. So we kept going. We were showing him everything. And at this point, it was just a good time with friends. It was me, the other researcher, and then our good friend Kenny. And so we got up to this outcropping where you could see for miles. I mean, the view was gorgeous. The sun was starting to set and we were taking pictures. There was other people up there with us and, they finally started heading back down. We were the last ones up there. And I started looking around. I'm like, that sun's getting ready to set. And I looked back into the tree cover where we had to cross back through to get back down the mountain. And it was totally dark inside. So I told the other two guys, I said, okay, it's getting dark. We should probably start heading back down now. Mike obviously agreed, hey, it's going to be darker inside than out here. So we were thinking we're going to run out of daylight before we get down and out of here. So we need flashlights. Nobody brought anything. I think we left a recorder in the car. We left a bunch of our stuff at the hotel where we were staying. We didn't bring any of our flashlights. It was only supposed to be a day trip that turned into more of a social trip. And we're looking around, we're deciding what to do. And Kenny says, I have some flashlights. And we're like, oh, you're awesome, Kenny. So he breaks out. He just happens to have 3 flashlights. Well, kind of. There was 2 headlamps and 1 flashlight. The only problem was one of the headlamps, I think the strap was broke on it, so you couldn't put it on. The other headlamp was really dim, and the flashlight seemed to be the best option. It shone the furthest. And so we're thinking, okay, this is comical. We're going to get down this mountain side with only 3 very faulty source of light. So we decided we're going to take the level 3 way down. It's the hardest way. It's very rocky. There's tons of crevices you have to watch out for. It was pretty risky with it getting dusk. And also as it started to turn dusk, dew started to settle on all the rocks and everything. Now, I want to skip back and remind everybody that this event happened in October, probably about 5 years ago. So it was fall weather, and so dew had started to settle. The leaves were slick. It was just very dangerous, and you had to shine the light with every step you took because, like I said, there were very deep crevices that you could easily fall into, step into, slide into on the way down. And these crevices went so far, like there were spots where you couldn't even see the bottom in the daylight. So we were sliding down these rocks, and as we're sliding down, we can hear all kind of moving across the rocks, this sliding noises as you come down, the boots sliding against the rock. And we kept hearing this other sliding that was happening above us. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm just hearing things, or that's possibly the leaves settling behind us. And then Mike finally turns around and he goes, I think there's something sliding down the rocks behind us. And I said, okay, I'm glad you heard that too, because I've been hearing that. So we're kind of excited. We're thinking, okay, this could be something. So our main goal at that point was to get off those rocks where it was so dangerous if we would have got caught up in a bad situation, and to get on to more flat level ground, dirt. We just wanted to get back on dirt. So we get down, and the whole time we're still hearing this random sliding. And at this point, we can tell it's not the leaves resettling behind us as we're sliding down the rocks. This is sliding down a whole separate set of rocks than we were. So we get down to the ground, the dirt, where we feel a little bit more safe, that we can take off if we need to, we can hang out if we need to, we're not going to tumble off the side or step into anything dangerous. And we're like, okay, let's see if we can get something. So we stood there, we listened for a little bit, we heard definite noises, and then Mike says, okay, let's go ahead and head on down some more. Let's get to a little bit more level ground, because at this point, we were still set at a pretty steep area. So we're like, okay, great idea. That way, at least on the trail portion, we don't have these steep declines and inclines on each side of us. So we head down a little bit further. We get to pretty flat ground. We're still up on the mountain, but it's a level area of this mountain. And we're talking and we're like, okay, we're getting stuff. We've got lights. We'll use our phones to record with. We'll use our phones to document and do whatever we need to with what we have available. Because the last thing we wanted to do was head completely out of the area and try to go get devices and then come back and risk whatever we were experiencing gone at that point. And so we're like, it's totally dark at this point. By this time, the sun has set. We're in complete tree cover. It was October. All the trees hadn't quite settled off the trees yet. So we didn't want to go all the way out and then risk also coming back in and not being allowed to come back in. Because at this point, even if they know we're in there, they're not going to know where we're at. We'll have a little bit of time to try to get a good investigation in before they have a chance to come kick us out. So we wait, and Mike, I think, starts with a wood knock. He goes, let's try wood knock. He does a wood knock. Nothing happens. So we wait a little bit. He does another wood knock. And about probably not even a full minute later, we get a faint return wood knock. And out of every investigation I've been to, I've had things happen. I've had strange things that make you question. But the wood knock response, and in the time frame it responded, it was instantly, my curiosity was piqued. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see what we got. Mike decides he's going to do a call. He's going to do a whoop. And he does the whoop. Nothing. And then I think he did another little one. Still nothing. So he looks at me and he goes, why don't you do a feminine whoop? I'm like, I don't know what a feminine whoop is. So I'm like, I don't know what a feminine whoop is, but I'll give it a shot. He goes, just try to make it sound, like a little higher pitched. I said, okay, this is silly. This is goofy. At this point, I had never willingly did a whoop for people. If I ever did it, it was to show people what it sounds like, what it's like to do it. I'd never done one on an investigation. I actually didn't really think highly of them because you don't know what you're saying to them. You don't know if you're making the situation worse, if you're scaring them away. So I hesitantly did the whoop and tried to make it as girly and feminine sounding as possible, if you can do that. And wouldn't you know it, we got a return whoop. And that's when my heart started racing. And I wasn't afraid. I was not afraid at all. I was super, super excited. I was ready for this. I'm like, okay, this is going to be the night I see my first Bigfoot. So I'm excited. I'm, like, well, okay, well, I've never done a whoop. What do you usually do after whoop? I don't usually like to do whoops. And he says, well, just wait. I said, okay, great. We'll just wait. And so we waited and we didn't hear anything. So he's like, I'm going to try another wood knock. So he does another wood knock. Nothing. And I'm thinking, okay, it's died down. I've scared it away. We've scared it away. We've done too much. And the next thing you know, we're hearing these footsteps. And I'm like, okay, those are very small footsteps. Let's just see if it might be, a squirrel or something playing in the leaves. But then we hear more footsteps and these sound a little heavier. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound like a deer or anything on four legs. That sounds like regular bipedal steps. And then we hear more footsteps up on the incline. So if you were facing the way to go out, we had a decline on our right side and an incline on our left side. So our first set of footsteps that we were hearing was on our right side, heading down that slight decline. It wasn't super sharp, it wasn't super steep, but it was on our right side. And then we started hearing footsteps on that sharper incline on our left. And I'm thinking, okay, that's weird because that's a very steep incline right there. And I can't imagine something walking that slowly without scurrying to get up it quickly. And then next thing you know, we heard a fourth set of footsteps. And all of these footsteps sounded very similar, very bipedal, and they were heavier than when they first started. And I'm thinking, okay, they are surrounding us. We have successfully drew them in. They are now surrounding us. And I'm thinking, how do we keep drawing them in? So I end up drawing this sigil on the ground, and that was before all the footsteps had started. So initially, when we were still trying to draw them in, I drew a sigil on the ground, and it was just a sigil that I've drawn several times. It's kind of like a luck symbol. And my grandma always told me it meant life or luck. And it just felt like the right symbol to draw while I was there. I try to do different techniques, even if it's something that just builds curiosity of these creatures. It's still something that can draw them in closer. But when I was drawing this symbol on the ground in the dirt on the trail, every directional line that I drew in this symbol that is already existing, the symbol, but every time I drew one in, we would hear footsteps coming from that direction. And it was very interesting. And I don't know how it all ties into the experience itself and why that seemed to happen, but it was on cue. Every time I would draw a directional line in, that's where we would hear the footsteps. And personally, I think that they were drawn into it out of curiosity, just because it's like, what is this crazy lady doing drawing in the ground, in the dirt? Like, why is she doing this weird thing? And I think it just drew their curiosity, and maybe that's what drew them in. But that's what kind of initiated hearing the footsteps, was drawing that symbol on the ground. That's when we started hearing all those footsteps. So when we started realizing that they are surrounding us, like they are crowding us on this trail right now, I decided that I was going to be a little bit more bold, a little bit more risky, because I'm thinking, I want to see one. That was my main goal. I wanted to see one. I wanted to have my first sighting. So I had brought these pheromone enhancers, and all it does is it's supposed to enhance your existing pheromone. So I put it on, and I'm squatted down, and I'm looking through my bag to find it. I grab it, I put it on. I'm trying to be all secretive about it. And when I stood up, Mike asked me, he said, "What did you do?" I said, "I may or may not have put pheromones on." And he said, "Are you crazy? You're nuts. We're out here. We're by ourselves. It's just the three of us. You're putting pheromone on. You're going to get kidnapped." And I just kind of giggled. I laughed it off. And we're the whole time we have our video recorders going on our phones. And initially, Mike had started doing a YouTube live on his phone. And his phone, when we first got there, it was 100%. And then by the time he started recording, it was like more than halfway empty, or more than halfway full, rather. And his phone, he was doing the YouTube live for maybe 10 minutes, and his phone went from like 50% down to 0. Cut the video, everything cut off, his phone died. So then I was like, okay, I'll draw out my phone. So at this point, when I put the pheromone on, we're doing a YouTube live on my phone. And I didn't know it at the time, but our guest on the live was trying to tell us that our video started glitching out and that they couldn't see here and there. But we weren't getting any of those comments. And so as we're standing here, we're noticing the footsteps are getting closer and closer to our little circle. And I'm standing inside my little circle, inside my little symbol. The two gentlemen were standing down the way, closer to the exit than me. And by closer to the exit, I mean, we were pretty far away from the exit still, but they were the closest to the out. And I was still in my little circle. And they were about a couple arms reach from me. And Kenny, he was very scared at this point. He's just a Bigfoot enthusiast. He's not out there to go big or go home. He just wanted to kind of see the sights with us, get to experience the area with us. He was very scared. He was turning white. He was having cold sweats. He had a pre-existing heart. So Mike's biggest concern was getting him out of there because he was scared for him. And so Mike's telling me, we got to go. They're getting closer. Kenny's not okay. We need to get out of here. And I said, yeah, I agree. You go take Kenny. You get him down to that car and get him out of here. And Mike says, okay, I'm not leaving without you. And I said, yes, you are. We're getting stuff. This is why we're here. I'm good inside of my circle. You go ahead. You go get Kenny, get to the car. We'll be okay. I'll be okay here. You'll be back. You'll come get me. And he said, no, I'm not leaving without you. This is too dangerous. And he reaches up right then and he grabs the crook of my arm and he just kind of gives a little tug saying, please, come on, let's go. And the moment he touched me, the whole vibe just changed. And all of a sudden you heard boom, 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 boom. It was like 5 to 6 steps. Like not steps, stomps. And it was so hard that it shook the ground. And my immediate reaction, I looked back up the hill. I shone my light. Now remember, my light that I was using was just a headlamp and it was so dim. You could see about 5 feet in front of you. That was it. So I'm shining my headlamp and I'm just waiting and I'm still hearing the stomping. And all I'm thinking is, because you got 1,000 things that run through your head in those moments as things are happening. And as I'm hearing this stomping close to me, I'm shining a light towards it. I'm between it and the guys. And all I can think is, what am I going to see when this thing comes into my flashlight? What am I going to be face to face with? And then it stops. And I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. No noise, no huffing. No, nothing after that. Just quiet. And I turn and I look at the camera that Mike's holding and he's facing it towards me. And he said, or no, he looks at me and he's just wide eyed. And I said, I think it's time to go now. And he said, yeah, you think? So I said, I'm not turning around. I'm going to back down. We're going to go slowly. Because at this point, I know there's something massive at the end of this flashlight view that I still haven't seen. And the only thing I wanted to do was to get everybody out of there safely at that point, because the whole vibe had changed and it became very threatening. And we're backing down slowly. I'm not turning around at all until we get pretty far away. We actually cut a corner and that's when I finally turn around. And I'm thinking, that was the closest I've ever been to the biggest creature I've ever heard. And we got to get out of here. So we're moving slowly. And as we're moving, we're hearing them walk with us just on the edges of the paths on each side of us. And I told Mike, I said, they're corralling us out. They want us gone. And he said, yeah, you're right. So we finally get down and I told Mike, I was like, that was intense. And he goes, yeah. And we're at the point, we're off of the dirt trail that goes up the mountain. We're now on a blacktop trail. We're still beyond the fence where, the trail starts, but we think we're safe. And we're talking about it. And all of a sudden we hear this big loud explosion. And Kenny, he just turns sheet white and he goes, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. And we're like, you go. Mike goes, I don't think we're far enough out yet. I said, I think you're right. So we keep walking and we get to this wooden fence. And right when you cross that fence, it's like you left this aura behind. It's like you walked through this invisible wall. And it was just this pressure released off you that you didn't even realize you had on you. And you felt like you could breathe again. And I turned and look at him. And then all of a sudden, I turned to look at Mike because at this point, Kenny was gone. He left. He was gone. Oh, no, you know what? He walked out to his car. He hadn't left yet because he was there when we started hearing all these noises. So Kenny's still at his car at this point. And we walk past this invisible wall. And after all that pressure and you can breathe again, all that releases, we hear this long, steady whoop over the ridge, down on the other side where we know there's water that runs through. And then there's another long, very monotone whoop up on the next ridge. And then another one up on the next ridge. And it starts over again. And it does this ascending order of these whoops. And then after a while, after a few times of these ascending whoops, they just start belting out from all over this mountainside. There's so many of them calling that they start to bleed into one another. And it's just like, just this continuous sort of like sound. And I'm thinking, we're getting all of this on this YouTube Live right now as we speak. We're getting all of it. So Mike's like, okay, we got to go. And I'm like, okay. So I hit process because what I was wanting to do was I was going to get the video to process on YouTube. Then I was going to bring out my recorder on my phone because at this point I was still the only one with a phone, and I was going to record the audio on my phone. And when I hit process on the YouTube Live, it said processing failure. And I'm like, oh no. So I'm trying to get it to still process. Mike's rushing me to get in the car. He's now afraid, now that we're in the parking lot, we're going to get in trouble by the people who watch over that area. So he's telling me, hurry up, we got to go. We're out here. We're out in the open. We got to get out of here. So I'm still trying to get it to process. And I'm like, just please wait. If I leave this screen, I might lose it all. I want to get audio of this. We don't have any of our recorders with us. And he said, no, we really got to go. And I'm thinking, what's more important? Audio that I don't know how good it's going to sound. They're starting to kind of fade out now. Or this video, if I lose it, I lose the whole thing. So I decided I wanted to keep working on getting the video to process. I'm trying to email YouTube. I'm trying to get a hold of somebody. Can you recover this data? Can you do something to help me? And finally, I had to hit that dreaded back button. And I hit the back button. And it took me back to the processing screen, and I hit process successfully. I was so excited. We saved the video. I pull it open. Our 57-minute video got cut down to the first 9 minutes of recording. We lost it all. Every bit of it. I was never more hurt, never more distraught. I didn't even get to see one. But the good thing about it is it solidified my belief in Bigfoot and took away nearly all of my doubt. I still hadn't seen one. I still had that little flick of doubt, but it took away so much of my doubt that I was just out there playing in the woods is what, I originally thought of it as. I'm no longer playing in the woods. I am going out searching for these massive bipedal hairy creatures that could potentially kill somebody. I'm not saying they will, but the potential is there in the right circumstance. It added a whole different insight to the way I research what I do when I'm out in the field, what I do when I'm out in the woods, even with my kids. It busted open this whole different realm of reality for me that has never went away. I've been researching ever since. I haven't had anything quite like that. But then it was just September of this year that I went out with Searching for Sasquatch. I became a member of Searching for Sasquatch team. And Searching for Sasquatch is a whole series of Bigfoot documentaries. I think there's 15 now that are out, and they're just a lot of fun to do. There's a little bit of a comedic effect to it. And I became a part of their team, happily so. And the whole team was sent out to Oak Ridge, Oregon to speak at Bigfoot Summerfest. And it was a lot of Sasquatch Summerfest. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of good times. From the time we woke up, we were at the conference. Then as soon as we left, we would go out research. From the time we woke up to the time we went to sleep, it was all Bigfoot for a week straight. And I believe the Sunday before we were due to leave, we were up on this gorgeous mountainside, and we were at this old mining town that this was the last year of them in operation. The old mining town is an old ghost town that doesn't get used anymore. It's all old buildings. Everything's kind of dilapidated. Some of it's falling down. Some of it has fallen down. But the access road that you use to get to that area is still used by miners. But this was the last year, I believe, for that access road to be accessible. So we want to get out there and see it. So we went up there, we did a little bit of paranormal stuff. We had a little bit of fun stuff happen with that. But then on the way out, we had to actually leave in the dark. It was a very sketchy way to go down. It's a driving access road, but there's not much road on either side of you. And there's some places where the big truck that we were in barely fit. So there's not a whole lot of risk of having other human interaction there. So we had the whole access road, that whole side of that mountain to ourselves, basically. And as we were coming down, there was a steep incline on the right. There was a slight decline on the left. And what crossed in front of us, we had most of the Searching for Sasquatch in the truck, and then I think that there was another vehicle behind us. But as we were coming down, this mom and two baby deer ran in front of us. And the mom and one of the baby deers, they cleared the steep incline. I mean, it was a good jump. They cleared it, and the second little baby didn't quite get up all the way. He tried, he messed up, kind of went back down, and then took off running. So we're thinking, okay, we're just going to keep going. This little baby deer is going to either cut off right or left and get back to its mom. Well, we're driving for just a few minutes, and we're like, this thing's not getting off the road. We don't want to get it too far away from its mom. So the goal was the driver was going to get really close, and one of us was going to jump out and cut around the side of it and run it off the road. It sounded great in theory, but you don't know how fast a baby deer is until you're out there chasing after it. So they said, who's the fastest? I volunteered. I'm the fastest. I'll get out there. I'll jump over Sherry's lap, and I'll get out there and I will take off running after it. Sherry's like, I'll come with you. I was like, okay, but you got to stay still first so I can jump over you. And she says, okay, because I was stuck in the middle. I had, I think, Chad on my right, Chad Datema on my right. I had Sherry Barshaw on my left, and then there was people in front. So I had to climb over somebody to get out and had to be fast. So he gets up real close to the baby deer. I jump out, I take off running, and there was no way I was going to get around to the side of this baby deer before it totally cleared me on the road. And so I'm like, okay, I just got to keep running after it. I'm going slow enough, it's going to run off the road. So they stop, they wait. Sherry's, I guess, getting out still, but I'm long gone. I'm running after this baby deer. The road curves to the left and then goes straight a little. Well, as the road curved to the left, I cut to the left. I keep running straight. I'm focused on the deer in front of me, and it's gaining headway. And so I'm thinking, I'm never going to catch this deer. And right then I look up, and off to the right, standing, blocking the cliff wall, is this massive figure. And as soon as I see it, I'm thinking, okay, that's me. That's me. The lights are shining up on the road above me. That's my shadow. I'm casting a shadow. And I continue running at it. And then I'm looking and I'm like, the legs aren't moving. So while I slow to a jog and I kind of cock my head to one side to see if the shadow does the same thing as me. Well, it didn't. It paused and then it cocked its head the opposite direction. And I'm like, oh no. I stopped so fast. The gravel slid, I slid, and I stand up straight. And I'm thinking, this has got to be somebody else's shadow from higher up. So I cock my head to the other direction. It cocks its head the other way. And then that's when I look up and I'm trying to see where the truck is. And I realize that all of the headlights from the truck are completely blocked because I've went around this curve. Only thing I can see is a little tiny flit of the headlights through the leaves on the tree. So I start yelling, I need light. I need somebody bring me a light. Because I'm thinking, I'm seeing something. I'm seeing probably a Bigfoot. I'm seeing something. It was so many thoughts going through your head. And all I kept thinking was, I don't have my light. I don't have anything. We had already unstrapped all of our gear. We were on our way out. I have nothing with me. So I'm yelling, I need light. I'm looking at a big shadow. I need light. And so I keep my eyes on this and I walk a little bit so I can get to where I can actually see my shadow in front of me. And then I look up the hill. Well, actually, before that, as I'm stepping to the side, I watch this thing take 1-2 steps the opposite direction of me. I look up the hill to see where the truck is at according to the lights. And when I look back, it's gone. It was totally gone. And then that's when I really started panicking because I'm like, okay, definitely not a shadow from up above. Definitely not. Chad finally gets to where I can hear him yelling back at me, I'm coming. And when he gets down to me, I was trying to describe to Chad what I'd seen and the whole thing that happened. And Jason Kinsey, at that point, he had walked up there to me. And I think Sherry Barsha, she had showed up there as well. And I was trying to talk to him all. And Jason said, it's just so weird how right when you got separated from the group is when it decided to show up. And I said, I know, but please believe me, I'm not crazy. I saw what I saw. And he goes, oh, I'm not doubting you. It's just weird how that's how it happens. And I said, you're not kidding. That is so true. So they finally talked me into getting back in the truck because it was very late. We had to get up the next day. We still had stuff to do at the conference. And I'm thinking, oh, the deer, the baby deer, it got the deer. Oh my gosh, it got the deer. So I'm like, but where's the baby deer? And they were like, you're worried about the baby deer? And I'm like, well, yeah, it went the same direction the baby deer just ran. And so we drive forward. Just around the corner, there stands the baby deer in the headlights, just waiting. And the next thing you know, that's when it trundles off and jumps off the roadway. And we're like, okay, so now it's gone. It'll get back to its mom, but what was that? And the whole drive back took probably about 45 minutes. That whole drive, I couldn't get into the conversations that everybody else was having. I couldn't get my thoughts straight. I just kept replaying that over and over and over again in my head. And finally I turned, I said, was anybody recording? And they said, yeah. Chad said, yeah, I was. I believe it was Chad that said he was. I said, can I please see that video? And so he hands me his phone and I'm watching the video back because I needed to see where everybody was at, their position, what they were doing while I was down there having my experience. And so I'm watching the video and you can see no shadows that have any definition on that rock face. You can see the shadows, but it's so stretched out that the only thing you could see of the shadows from the people from the truck were like their knee down because their shadows had elongated so far ahead of them. So at that point, I knew it. There was no way whatsoever it could have been one of their shadows. I knew it wasn't mine because I already tested that theory while I was out there and it was going on. So the only thing I was left with was what else is bipedal, has a conical shaped head, and is massive. It's a Bigfoot. You saw your very first Bigfoot, and it was by yourself with no footage, no way to prove it, no way to show anybody. It was, again, just was disheartening things, but I got to have my own personal experience. And it replayed in my head over and over and over. And I went to bed thinking about it. I don't remember if I dreamed about it, but I woke up thinking about it. And then I went home. 2 days later, I had a dream about it. And I was playing basically hide and go seek with this little Bigfoot. And it was dipping in and out of places, and I was going around trying to find it, but it was fun. It was a game. It was a game to me in the dream, but it was just, it was just so surreal. And I have the type of brain that is always trying to explain myself out of what I saw. And I tried everything I could, thinking, okay, its head was conical shaped because maybe somebody was wearing a hoodie. But then when I watched the video back, there was nobody that could have shown a shadow to that definition on that, and to the depth that it was standing there, because it was so solid of a shadow. I thought it was a shadow, but it was too solid of a shadow to be coming from the truck that was way up on the road. I tried everything I could to explain out of what I saw. And I finally had to just tell myself, you saw a juvenile Bigfoot. It wasn't massive. It was more massive than me, but it was probably about 7 foot tall, not very, very huge, maybe a little under 7 foot. But I saw a Bigfoot, and I still try to second guess myself. I still try to talk myself out of it. But I can't, because I have to admit that there's no other explanation for what I saw. And it just blows your mind when you have such a up close. I almost ran into him. I stopped probably about, I don't know, maybe like 20 yards away from him. It was so close. For my sake, it was close. So it was super interesting, and it'll just be another one of those experiences that I'll never forget. So I can finally say, even though I didn't get to see any definition, I didn't see any color, I got to see my first Bigfoot.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let us know. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, love's in the plow, and the 5-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah, the sound of a memory brings me back to the bluegrass playing on my dad's 8-track. His pickup man had been through it, getting through the day on Scruggs and Skags, booking 8 bales to those Tennessee jams. There's no other way that I'd do it. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. Something coming backwards in double time, getting to the soul in the drumming old Kentucky style. Those are the anthems drumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Pace of the city life drives me wild. The only tune is the cars rushing by, with the bass on the stereos booming. When I hear the front porch picking down home rhythm ringing out. I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. Something going backwards, backwards in double time. Looking at the soul and the tremolo Kentucky style. Those are the anthems drumming out country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down home rhythm ringing out. I don't run from banjo music. Something going backwards, backwards in double time. Looking at the soul and the tremolo Kentucky style. Those are the anthems drumming out country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down home rhythm, fried chicken, porch swing, mama's best sweet tea kind of sounds.